All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first few awkward moments of every live stream you've ever seen, where we try and make sure that everybody is online and watching and hanging out with us. So we look like we are live on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, give me a quick shout to let me know you're alive, and we'll be checking on Facebook here in a minute. Facebook's not up yet, but we'll send everybody to YouTube. Hey, it's nice seeing everybody. Okay, we're actually getting comments from Facebook already, so looks like we are live on Facebook. And I will say, folks, welcome to cool, and we have folks over on YouTube as well. So we are alive and kicking. Thank you for reporting in, everybody. It is great to see you guys. That's just a figure of speech. I can't actually see you. So if you just panicked there for a second because you were doing something perverse or degenerate and thought, oh my God, he can actually see me doing this. No, I'm sorry, I can't. It's just a figure of speech that we use on the internet. So welcome to our little special edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live. I'm JG Pasterjack. We're going to be talking to my good friends John Hunter and Matt Busby here in just a few minutes about the state of the SCCA Time Trials program going into 2022. Now, I've been lucky enough to be able to take a peek behind the hood of the Time Trials program recently. There are a lot of proposals for new rules coming up. There's a lot of classing proposals going on. We got a lot to talk about tonight. So we're going to try and go through this in some kind of semblance of order. I know everything's going to come off the rails very, very quickly. So we will just do the best that we possibly can to field any questions that come up in a logical order and deal with everybody's concerns and get through things, because lots of stuff going on with the Time Trials program. We have a program now that has its premier event in the middle of the year, which is a little weird compared to what we're used to. We're used to having solo nationals and runoffs and championship events stacked towards the end of the year. And now we've got time trial nationals in May, and that is sort of affecting the rules making, not necessarily the process, but it's affecting the timing of the rules making. So we're going to deal with some of that stuff tonight, and we're going to probably have a little fun. And let's see who is checking in. Oh, let's see, Hayward is checking in, because obviously he's got nothing better to do. And speaking of Hayward Wagner, he is ankle deep in preparations for the Pine Mountain Hill Climb, which I think was just announced today as, yes, it is officially happening. They've got all their permits. They've got all their pre-event legalities all worked out. So congratulations to them. That's a fabulous event. If you can make it, I recommend you do it. So let's get things rolling here. I am keeping an eye on everybody's questions as best I can. So let me first bring in John Hunter from the Sports Car Club of America. John is the John. Did I get it right? I identified you as the National Time Trials Director. Is that what you would consider an accurate description of your actual job?
Director, program manager, however you want to look at it. Yeah, I think you can slice up many different ways, but that basically covers it.
So for those folks out there that are maybe not that familiar with the program, or who are just considering, and as a recap of, for the rest of us who have been involved in this program for a while, give us what is the overarching philosophy of time trials. What are you guys trying to accomplish with this program?
To have a good time. We like driving on track. We like driving fast cars, and we want to provide a great home for people to do that. We have a little program that was established a little bit before time trials called Track Night in America. It's basically an HPDE run during track days or weekdays. Gets people on track in a very casual, laid-back, fun atmosphere. And we like to consider the time trials program Track Night in America with transponders. So we keep that laid-back atmosphere. We keep the intent on having a good time, teamwork, working together on track, but adding that little bit of competition edge to it, so that we kind of fill the void for everybody, including some of us who are a little bit more competition minded. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So uh, the program now is sort of stepped out of its infancy and it's into maybe not even young adulthood, but certainly adolescence. How how is it developing based on how you thought it was going to be developing? Is it heading the direction that you thought it was going to? How many course corrections have been needed to get it where it is today? Which I think last year at Time Trial Nationals we had what, like 270 entries.
Oh, not that much. We would love to have 270 entries, um, but it was
Felt like
a little bit less than that. But no, I think the program's maturing well. It's maturing at a reasonable pace. Um, Now, of course, having the pandemic hit us in the year before last, and then kind of affect last year, has kind of held up interest a little bit. But the program as a whole, I see moving forward very, very well, and coming into its own. And as you mentioned earlier, we're entering another year where we can look at some possible changes when it comes to rules and stuff like that, where we can continue moving the program forward if the participants so choose.
awesome. Okay, so we've mentioned a couple times Time Trials Nationals. Before we get too much further along in this, I'd like to bring another cat in here. Of course, Time Trials Nationals takes place at NCM Motorsports Park in Bowling Green, Kentucky. If that sounds familiar to you, that is possibly because they were the ground zero for some fairly gnarly weather systems, as recently as a couple months ago. And the track itself, their facilities at the track were uh, devastatingly affected by tornadoes. And so let's bring in Matt Busby. Matt, are you there, my friend?
Yeah, hey, how are you guys?
Doing great, man. So more importantly, though, how are you? So look, I know things are kind of getting back on track at the track, but how were you? How did you personally fare after the storms there in Bowling Green? I know Zach, your track photographer, had some real issues to deal with, but I hadn't really heard about how like you or Mitch or anybody else there did. Are you doing all right?
Oh yeah, we've been fine. The scariest part, my son was sleeping over at a friend's house that was in an affected area, and we
Oh
couldn't get
wow.
a hold of him, and so like I didn't know true panic until that moment. But that's the worst thing that happened for us personally. Outside of it, as far as the racetrack goes, we pretty much every building on the racetrack or on property is totaled.
Wow.
Everything's gone. We're still, working through the process of selecting like a GC and all that kind of stuff for the rebuild. And we fully plan on building back better and everything like that. But it's been a year for me for the last 2 months.
I mean, is so shortly after it happened, there was an announcement that Time Trial Nationals would take place, at that site. So that speaks to a lot of community support, both from the local community and from the time trial community. What do you think the track is going to look like when folks show up in May? I mean, it sounds like you're still selecting contractors, so it's hard to say. But what's a goal for what are people gonna expect to see when they get there?
So we were moving in today our new Super Wamperdine 50 by 100 tent, which has a heater and air conditioning and all kinds of fun stuff. Actually, we have more classroom and kind of like banquet space than we had in the Holly Tower, which is kind of nice. But the only thing I can promise you that we will not have that we have had in the past years, we will not have flushing toilets and we will not have showers. Otherwise, everything else is gonna move on just about the same. We have half of our day garage complex was pretty much destroyed. The east wing, so garages, if you're familiar with NCM, garages 10 through 18 and C and D, which are on the east side of the paddock, so closer to the east track, all fine. We're going to be, operating, just like normal. All the RV spots, just fine. Every scrap of asphalt, just fine. We had a couple of corner stands that are kind of like out of square now that we've had to go out and re-square and pour footers for. But as far as track damage goes, that's it. Our kart track. Our kart track was a direct hit. We still don't know where the kart track building is.
Oh,
We
wow.
just haven't found pieces of it. It's gone. So we're by May we fully expect to have everything back up and running for karting, for arrive and drive. So while folks are on site for time trial nationals, we'll be able to get you out in a go kart and have some fun. Hopefully do some sort of party. Because now that's kind of where we're going to be living. Is our main building, our main tent, like our main operations center, is right there at the car track. But yeah, we're plunking right along. We're doing all the crazy preseason prep and getting people trained and contracts and event summaries and all that kind of stuff leading up to the normal season and rebuilding the facility at the same time. So it's been a lot of long nights, a lot of long days, but we have our first big event this weekend. We had King of the Heap. I'm sorry, my Heapers. It was not a big event. We have our first big event this weekend with a BMW club coming for the racetrack, and we're going to be able to put on a hell of a show for them.
So, are you guys taking this opportunity, since a lot of stuff is getting rebuilt, to make any changes, any upgrades, any adjustments to the infrastructure there?
For sure, there has been a lot of discussion about that, right? So we have 8 years of, man, I wish we would have had this, or I wish we would have done this. Elevator and more entertaining space, and why the hell is race control, 1,400 square feet, that kind of stuff. We're still, like I said, we're still in the process of selecting like a GC and working with insurance and stuff like that. So figuring out how much we have to go out and do that is still very much a question. Thankfully, I don't have to get too involved in that. There are people who are very much handling that. But yes, it's on everything from like I said, an elevator and more observation deck space, more entertaining space, to we even kind of kicked around that idea, if anybody's ever been to VIR, where their day garages above them have these like little mini suites to where you can rent and sleep, and we love that. I mean, a lot of us, track dayers and track goers have spent some time in those things, and hey, what does that look like for us? What does that cost? And we're still in that kind of stage. Hey, what does this cost?
I've stayed in those before, and the track goes hot at 7:45, and you absolutely know that.
Regardless of how much you drank that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, that would be fantastic. It's if you haven't had the chance to go to that track, it is one of my favorite tracks anywhere in the world. It is such a challenging track. It's if you designed a track specifically for a time trial event, it would look a lot like that, because it really throws a lot of great stuff at you. It's not overly difficult in that you're very rarely frustrated in learning the track, but it is a challenge to master the track. So anybody who's not been there, I would absolutely suggest that if you want a chance to drive at one of the most fun places in the world and help support them while they're getting back on their feet, absolutely do it. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts here, because that's what people want to talk about. John, I'm going to use this question to kind of segue into talking a little bit about road stuff. John Wade had a question about if a car is dominant in, say, TT4, is there a mechanism for promotion to TT3, for example? He's using terminology from a different sanctioning body, but let's talk a little bit about the rules making process of SCCA Time Trials, and how the governing bodies that handle classing sort of assign classes to different cars, and how those cars can potentially move through those classes should they ever need to. Oh, hang on, John was okay. Sorry, John. I had you muted because you were scratching yourself earlier.
I do not blame you one bit.
Now you're back.
When it comes to classing, especially when it comes to sport and tuner, one of the overarching things that we bring into it is the desire to make sure that we are making sure that the cars that are most likely to do well are the cars that people want to bring to the track naturally. So what we call that is the balance of popularity versus performance. And We have a great program, like I mentioned earlier, Track Night in America, which has, 10,000 some participants throughout a year that we can grab data from to see what people bring to the track when they just want to go to the track and have a good time. And then obviously we gotten to the point with this program where we can see, do those cars match up from track night with the time trials program? How that all works? Um, so we look at that. Then we look at, the performance potentials of the car, and we look to see what are the overarching popular cars, and then where do they fall performance wise, and then kind of distinguish from there where they fit.
So if something is, are you not necessarily trying to give everybody a place to win, but you're trying to give everybody a place to compete? What is your guideline for a popular car? Is it just numbers that are showing up to the events, or is it specific models? How are we determining what's popular and what's not?
What's popular is like you said, it's the type of car that shows up when you just choose that car to be the car that you want to drive for the sake of driving it. I think one of the things we looked at is, if you've ever autocrossed before, sometimes a car can get classed in autocross. It isn't necessarily the car everybody wants, but it's the car that can win. Um, and so people go out and buy that car to be competitive. We wanted to avoid people feeling they needed to buy a particular car to be competitive. We'd rather have people lean into having the car that they own and love and having that car be their competitive car. Now, is that going to mean you're going to have the chance to be on podium all the time? Probably not. But one of the things I love about time trials versus like autocross and road racing is it's still you versus the clock, and you are getting to run tracks multiple times. So even if it's not the time trials, it may be a track day, that kind of thing. So it's a lot like golf, where yeah, you want to, get the jacket, so to speak, but you can hit the links several times. You can work on your handicap. You can bring that time down. You can constantly go for your personal best. And so that's what we kind of lean into as well. We've got the podium, but we also want to help people celebrate when they do extremely well with the car they have. So one of the things I want to do is if you bring say an NC Miata in Tuner 4, which great car, super fun car, great handling car, um, but not necessarily the top car in Tuner 4. Um, I want that person to be able to come in, have a great time. If he sets a personal best, that's awesome. We celebrate that. But then they can also take a look. I know a lot of car forums have track records for those cars, and they have the mods list and stuff, and that gives them an opportunity to try to move up on those kinds of forums and those kind of things where they can celebrate the accomplishment whether they get the podium or not. If that makes
So
sense.
yes, so back to John's specific question, what does the mechanism look like for reclassing a car? Is it something that is maybe popular but it has never won a trophy at a national event, or something that is absolutely dominating a class? Do you start looking at bumping that car up, and how long does that process normally take when when you start examining like these specific cars in classes?
Well, that's the thing is we're actually, as you might know, we're looking at cars right now and seeing how they fit within the sport classes and kind of reshuffling. It's not a year over year type thing, but it is a thing we keep an eye on. If a car's super popular, say the twins in S6, we don't really want to mess with that. If they're showing up in droves, you don't want to put them in a situation that kind of pushes them out the door. Um, but if a car does have great potential and is popular elsewhere and it's not getting love here, then yeah, we're going to look into some things. Um, Bumping car between Sport 3, Sport 4, that kind of thing. What we're looking to do is we're looking at where it fits holistically from a performance level and potential level. And we are working right now to actually try to bring the classes a little bit closer together to make a fair fight, so to speak.
And I know one of the challenges that exists is when we have new cars that come in, like you mentioned the FRS and the BRZ. Well, now we've got a new FRS and a BRZ, and just in our magazine testing of it, it is considerably faster than the old car. So where do you put that car that's obviously going to be a popular car? You don't want to completely bury it the first year, but you still don't know what it's going to do. So what's the approach for something new like that? We don't want to destroy a class. We also don't want to destroy the popularity of the car.
Just like goals, you aim high, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the car's got a lot of. We're starting to see data from the cars when it comes to power, and it's obviously underrated. But the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to disrupt the Apple cart, so to speak. If there are cars that are fairly popular, we don't want to push them out on the hope or the thought that a car might be a really popular car that's going to be a lot of people are going to want to bring out. So what we'll typically do is place them maybe a class higher when it comes to performance than they would actually slot. And once again, that's a trying to figure that out because every car is going to perform a little differently. Um, but we go a little bit higher than what we expect it to land in, and then we revisit that as we see the cars come out. So in the instance of the brand new twin, I know for a fact we've got a few of our regular participants who have bought the car, and they plan on bringing them out. So we'll have some good data to see how they're doing that kind of stuff. We have magazines like yourself, which gives us great data as well. We can see how the cars do on track with you guys against other cars that are similar. So as the car comes out, or as the car starts getting used and driven, we can start seeing it. Do we need to make an adjustment? But the big thing we try to do with that is we try to avoid making the brand new car that just came out the car that everybody feels they have to go out and then buy. The whole idea of sport is 3-year-old to 12-year-old type cars. We don't want to make the brand new car that just came out the new hotness, so to speak, the car that everybody feels like they have to buy because we're still going to a track. We're still going to a situation where, gotta be cognizant of that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Got a couple other questions. Matt, this is going for you. And also, we've got 69 people on the feed right now, so no one's allowed to leave or come in for just a couple minutes outside to take a screenshot. Actually, we encourage people to come in. If I haven't mentioned it yet, do me a favor and go ahead and share the feed. If you have any friends who might be involved or might want to get involved in time trial, or if you have friends that are involved in track days and they're thinking about, hey, I want to take my I want to scratch this competition itch that I have and exercise this competition itch on track. Fantastic place to do it. Let's throw this next one to Matt a little bit. Wait, not that one. I clicked on the wrong one. There we go. So Calvin's asking about provisions for track limits on certain corners at NCM. Matt certainly knows the thing to do about track limits at NCM. And look,
I wonder which one.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I know I've got a couple of ground down bolt heads from track limits at NCM. But Matt, talk to us a little bit about the track limits there and how they're enforced, if they change for different events. Then John, I want to talk to you a little bit about how that affects other events at other places. I know there's a couple tracks where we're going to Sebring here fairly soon that has some track limit stuff. So I'd like to talk to you about if you run the on track portion of a time trial different from a road race possibly. But yeah, Matt, let's first hear about some of the limits at NCM and how they're enforced and what they look like for a time trial.
Yeah, so I think just in general, there are different groups that enforce different things. We have a few that are what we call our vegetation groups. So as long as you're not in the grass, we don't care. There are a few different places that there are definite performance advantages to be gained. The chicane of 1A and 1B come to mind for me. I think I'm always going to punt. From a track perspective, I'm always going to punt to the organizer. And, I think from an organizer standpoint, it's what can we police and what's reasonable, right? And as long as it's something that's reasonable and we can police it consistently, I mean, then hey, look, man, this is the box that everybody has to play in, so play in the box or don't, Turn 10 is one that actually hasn't been a point of contention for a lot of groups that I think will be soon. There's a couple different things that folks will see that there are advantages to be gained. But all jokes aside, 1A, in particular, there are, ways that you can do it that are aggressive without being egregious, and I've been working on that. And it's again, you're always going to punt to, especially with the SCCA. I think they've done a really good job of, hey, look, we can police this. We can, with a certain amount of consistency with corner workers and video and all this, say, hey, look, this is inbounds, this is out of bounds, and these are the penalties for it. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
And so, John, refresh my memory. I believe that the standard at NCM is you've got to have two wheels have to remain on the curb at least on the painted surface, or they have to remain on the track surface.
It's basically been the one wheel or two wheels inbounds. Typically,
Okay.
At different tracks we'll open things up depending. Like at Road Atlanta, we open things up for, I can't remember the turn off the top of my head, but when it's a normal line, if we can open up, we will. Of course, our thought is we want to make sure it's safe first of all. So things we're looking at, is it going to super upset the car? Is it going to cause any damage to the car potentially if people are sending it too hard because there's a bump on the other side or there's a divot? The other thing is, does it put a bunch of dirt on the track? So we try to avoid all those things because that affects everybody else is a chance to get that good time in. So when we're looking at track limits and how we're going to go treat each track, we're looking at those types of things. So there is some fudge room as we go through, depending on the track.
And I don't know if they were swept up in the tornado, Matt, but at LS Fest, I tried to go deep Busby line into turn one, and my ABS freaked out because I guess I got
as C5s do.
Yeah, probably got four
straight
wheels
lines.
Yeah, and there was two nice straight lines made by the front tires going right over two. So. Yeah, I'll leave that one to you. Okay. Next question is about start finish at nationals. So NCM has a start finish line on the front straight, and for time trial nationals, that start finish line is moved to just past turn 10, and as a way to sort of get cars cycling through quicker. It's funny. I was having a text conversation with a friend today who was asking how much track time do I get at time trial nationals? And with a big entry, that is something that you guys have to deal with, and not only getting people track time, but getting people clean track time. I know moving start finish was one of the goals there. So yeah, so let's first talk about NCM in particular, and then talk a little bit about some of the methods you guys use to ensure that everybody has a fair chance at a clean lap, John.
Yeah, when it comes to the start finish line, we haven't had a chance to talk about that too deeply yet. I don't see it moving. I do know the concerns when it comes to cool down lap and stuff like that, and I think we've done a good job of addressing the different ways you can get those cool down laps done, whether you stay on track or you pull off and do the cool down lap by going down the highway or going through paddock. But I totally get the concerns. I totally understand what everybody's saying. But it is something we'll talk about as we come up to Time Trials Nationals and solidify. But at this point, I don't see the start finish line moving, simply because it does such a good job of helping us keep the event going, reducing time that we're not using the track, which increases the amount of time you get to run laps and get laps completed.
So yeah, and as an aside to that, I will second this motion here. If we're going to do that, can we throw a stripe there, or some sort of discrete marker to let you actually know where that timing loop is for that event?
That'll punt to the track.
Let me get the place rebuilt, and let me see what I got left.
Damn it, Matt! You know what? The tornado doesn't take paint up, Matt. You can get out.
Oh no, I'm riding this as long as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so so John, let's expand on the concept of getting folks clean track time a little more. What is sort of the general philosophy to get people clean laps. Like if I'm going to a TT event, or let's start here. If I'm going to a TE event, it's a track event. I know that you're going to let everybody out. Everybody's going to drive at their own pace. They're going to point everybody by on the straightaways, but nobody's being timed. If I go to a TT event, I know that my car performs its best when the tires are a certain temperature, when the engine's a certain temperature, when I'm at a certain, readiness level. So how do you guys, as an organizer, manage that and try and get folks the best opportunity to hit their best laps?
Well, to start off, at every event, Time Trials Nationals or Time Trials National Tour, we obviously have a couple practice sessions first thing in the morning. Let people get up to speed, literally and figuratively, when it comes to what they're doing on track, get the rhythm down. And while they're doing those, we have the transponders on the car, so we're getting a baseline of where they're going to be running times. We'll use those times to then grid the folks up, so we release them in a time-based order, fastest to slowest. Um, but in fact, this year we're actually kind of changing things up at for the Time Trials National Tour events, where we'll take those. Say you have the novice, intermediate, advanced groups, and we'll after we get done with the practice sessions in the morning, when we go in the afternoon, instead of doing the same three groups, we'll keep novices at 20 minutes and running by themselves. But then we'll take the intermediate and advanced folks, we'll pair them together, and then divide them by typically four groups, reducing the amount of carb in each group. Um, that way, you have bigger spaces. You'll have smaller deltas of time differentials between fastest and slowest. Therefore, increasing the amount or increasing the chance of getting that clean lap in once we hit the actual timed runs. Um,
No, and I think as we see, with most of the cars being 200 treadwear tires, and then even the cars in the sticky tire class, the unlimited classes, are running a more autocross friendly compound just to get those ultimate laps. Your fastest lap is probably not going to be your fourth or fifth lap anywhere. It's probably going to be it should probably be your second lap. Maybe your third if you screwed that second lap up. But if you're trying to go fast after that, you don't really have the conditions to go fast after that. You know, underneath you, let alone on track. So yeah, definitely. Do not envy the job you guys have to do in making sure people get where they need to be. Um,
um, I was
okay.
gonna add there. The beautiful thing about what we're doing right now with when we go to those four groups, we're going to 15-minute sessions instead of 20. And the reason we're doing that is that should be good enough for about four laps, no matter what track we go to. And the idea is you do have those people on the 200 treadwear tires, or the people who get up to speed very quickly. They're going to do their 1-2 laps, and they're probably going to peel off. But those 3-4 laps are also going to benefit those folks who, as a driver, maybe they need that warm up. Maybe they need to do a couple hard laps before they really get into their rhythm. Or the people running, unlimited, where they have a little bit stickier tire that might take some time to get temp in them. They also have those laps to finish off their runs with potentially less traffic, because the 1 or 2 lappers have already peeled off, but also with the reduced car count, it makes it easier to keep those distances for those extra couple laps.
Yeah. With the reduced session time, I've seen some chatter about this online recently. How does that affect cars that may have multiple drivers in them? Is that just, hey, good luck, folks? What and if it is, do you have any recommendations for folks that are running multiple driver cars, maybe to optimize their approach for these events?
Well, what we've seen most of the time when people have co-drivers is they're usually not running the same times. So that makes it a little easier to split them up, because the times will naturally separate them. In the instance where we have people running fairly close to each other, it's just going to be looking at, okay, which direction do we send which driver to make sure we have a split? Because obviously we want to have a session in between if we can, to make sure that the car has a chance to cool down and we're not taxing the car too hard. Um, Let alone the driver changes and the way it potentially affect the gap lap and so forth and so on. So um, it's going to be a case by case basis, and getting that rolling. But we've generally in the past, we've always tried to make sure we make sure that there's a session in between the drivers, and we'll continue to do that going forward.
Awesome. All right, I got a question here from David, and he kind of gets back to classing. How do you guys classify older cars that may have aftermarket modifications? John, this will be a review for a lot of the folks that are here tonight, obviously, but run us through basically the category breakdowns, and if you can give us the absolute elevator speech on classing, because there kind of is a class for everything, but at the same time, the 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 market favors 5 to 15-year-old cars, so stuff newer than that and stuff older than that, through no fault of yours, just because this is the way things work, sometimes kind of gets left out. We're getting to the point now where there's not many stock C5 Corvettes anymore, just because they're getting to be old cars. There's not many stock NB Miatas, just because they're getting to be old cars, and it becomes easier to modify a car rather than just restore a car constantly. So run us through the categories and classing philosophy, just real quick.
Absolutely. So sport class is for, like we talked about earlier, the newer cars, the 3 to 12-year-old cars, and the idea behind sport is the modifications that are done that can be done to the car are stuff that you could do in your driveway with a pair of jack stands, and hand tools. Right? It's the basic mechanics, shade tree mechanic stuff that you can do to the car, lowering springs, shocks, sway bars, exhaust. If we do allow tunes, that's usually just download. Um, when you move on to tuner, that's more of your guy who likes building cars to rules, and or some street touring crossover from motocross. So you step up in what you can do to the car with the headers and the full exhaust and coilovers and that sort of thing. So those cars we go a little bit older on. We try to stretch out to the 15, 18-year mark. So it gives those folks a little chance to play. The next level up then is Max. I don't know if either one of you gentlemen are too familiar with that category or not. Um, but Max is the way we describe Max is
Matt was until his last Facebook post, and then
May or may not have ordered some Michelin slicks today. I don't know.
yeah, I saw something. But no, Max, we like to call Max the category for your dream car bought or built. And that's where you get a lot of the guys who have a car that they're starting to dedicate right to doing track days, and they're building specifically for that. Still street legal, obviously. There's still a car they can play with, but this is where you start getting into you're adding a little bit of aero, you're doing internal work, you're adding a turbocharger, that kind of stuff. And there's when it comes to Max, there's various areas to play. There's 5 different groups that go by engine size and boost and so forth and so on. Like I said, and then the final category is unlimited, where it's basically it's based off a production car, but it's you think you can do it, put it together and bring it on out. We've seen some pretty wicked unlimited cars. We've seen some pretty wicked Max cars. So those are some of the classes I get really excited when they come out and a chance to watch, because ingenuity and what these cars can do once you start playing with them at that level is pretty cool.
So let's talk a little bit about the relationship of SCCA Time Trial to other time trial clubs. Jeff, of course, Jeff Jeff seems somewhat dissatisfied with the program, but I'll try and address some of these concerns now. But talk to us a little bit about how where does SCCA Time Trials sit in the marketplace, and not just the the purchase choice marketplace, but the philosophical marketplace of time trial with other groups like NASA, like Global Time Attack, like Super Lap Battle, and like our own Ultimate Track Car Challenge.
Well, obviously we have a couple what I consider great partners with Global Time Attack and Grid Life. They're part of the NAFTA, North American Time Trials, Time Attack Council, yeah. And in our view of things is we're kind of where you get your start, right? We're kind of where you dip your toe, you get used to this. We have everybody from novice people that are on track to advance. And then Global Time Attack is more of a professional level. They require you to have a Time Trials advanced or like license before you can even enter one of their events. So they're more the professional series. And Grid Life is a lot like us, very chill, very laid back, from novice to advanced. They have a great. I actually did one of their events last year and enjoyed the heck out of it. There's a lot of similarities there that I enjoyed, but at the same time, the classing structure is a little different. I mean, straight out the get go with Grid Life, you're doing some pretty hefty mods if you want to keep up and put on the podium. And there's actually far less classes there as well. But in the pantheon of time trials, it's you guys have Ultimate Streetcar Challenge, which is an awesome thing, and then with Grid Life and GTA, I think there's a great number of places to play, and we have worked to try to have some decent crossover for the appropriate cars as people progress and start building those cars out. And the last few years, we've seen some really awesome crossover with folks like Jackie Dean and Kyle Carrick and some of the other folks. So they're kind of playing. They're playing in both worlds, or all three worlds. Actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, in fact, both of those guys were at VIR for the Ultimate Track Car, and we actually will grant a I don't know if you call it a scholarship, a free entry basically to the UTCC for a selected top finishing SCCA time trial driver. And I know there's programs like that for other sanctioning bodies as well. I think weren't you guys sending somebody to
Yep. Normally we send somebody out for a super lap battle at Coda.
Okay.
This year our top person couldn't make it, but we usually give them a free entry to super lap battle so they can test out Coda and run with GTA.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about some events we have coming up here, because we got one that I'm real excited about. I'm excited, but also a little frustrated because this is really the first national time trial event for the SCCA that we have had down here in Florida. We've got 3 great tracks down here, but we're going to Sebring, and not just going to Sebring in April, but going to the Sebring Long Course in April, which I am absolutely stoked about. Getting the chance to run there. Tell us a little bit about how that came about, and then let's talk a little bit about how does the stratification of the time trial program work. I know there's of course the nationals event, which we haven't really called a national championship yet. It's just time trial nationals at NCM. Then there's the time trials national series, which runs at a select number of tracks, and then let's first talk about how Sebring came about, because I'm super excited to hear that story, and then let's talk about how the different levels of time trial fit together.
Got it. Yeah, Sebring. That was a wild ride. How that came about, and we are super excited to be offering it. And I really hope people are taking advantage of it, because I think you can attest this. Getting to run a time trials at Sebring happens, but getting to run time trials at Sebring, the full track, is extremely rare. And it's going to probably continue to be extremely rare, especially for the National Time Trials Tour. So one of the things we try to do is we try to land a bucket list track, as we would call it, each year. And Sebring definitely is one of those things where it kind of fell into our lap. It was through an unfortunate set of circumstances. The Endurance Championship was set to be there. That program had to take a second and kind of reorganize and take a look at things, so that we can kind of got offered up as a potential for us to make lemonade out of lemon, so to speak. And we jumped on it. I think it was brought to our attention, and within a day or two, I had the event built, ready to go on the website, and we're ready to rock and roll. So we're super excited to be there. It's going to be a little bit different than our normal Time Trials National Tour events, which are normally 2 days, where you get Saturday and Sunday. At Sebring, you're actually getting a Friday practice session as well, 3 20-minute sessions on Friday. And for the price, I don't know how you pass this one up.
Yeah, and so it's also time trial, and there's track events. There's 2 separate track events on Saturday and Sunday, and then there's also a track night in America on Friday. So even if you don't want to compete, you can still come and hang out at Sebring, and run your car, 1, 2, or 3 days in a non-competition setting. And yeah, like the only bad thing I have to say about it is if you want to go, hotels are a little pricey right now, so get something lined up. I am literally staying in a trailer park Airbnb, which I think is going to be terrifying. Nobody shake my hand. This could just be covered crawling with lice, even more than it usually is. But I mean, that's what you do to go run a track like that.
Uh,
Go ahead.
in Central Florida, what can go wrong,
Yeah,
JG?
no, that's great.
But no, you're exactly right. So what we're doing with a lot of our Time Trials National Tour events that aren't already alongside other things, such as our partnership with GTA at New Jersey this year, and then there's a couple like at Pit Race Button Willow. Um, I'm missing one in there. Road Atlanta, of course, where we're running alongside of some road racing and that kind of thing. We're incorporating the track events, as we call them, into the Time Trials weekend, so that we can have that area where the folks who want to dip their toe in a little bit and experience the event, check it all out, but don't necessarily want to put the timer on the car just yet. They have an opportunity to come check everything out and have a great time with us as well. So we'll be doing that CMP, which is our kickoff event at the end of March. It's actually the weekend right before Sebring. So we'll be doing it there, and then we'll be leaning into it again at Sebring the following weekend. So, like you said, yeah, there's 3 different days, multitude of ways to play, and the cool thing is for those folks who do the time trials, if you want to get extra time on track, you want a little bit more practice time because you've never been there before, you can sign up for the track event while you're signed up for the time trial.
Oh wow.
So that means if you went on Saturday, you want to run, 9 sessions or whatever it ends up being, you can do that. There's nothing against that. So we're trying to. I consider it the choose your own adventure weekend when it comes to how you approach your track day.
Yeah, and it's just time trial and track event. We're not sharing the track with the road race part of the club. We're not sharing it with somebody who's there testing. It's not, we've glommed onto this other event. It is a dedicated time trial weekend at Sebring, which is absolutely unprecedented. And if you're anywhere in the southeast or even further away, it is worth making the trip. And April is about the only time of the year that you can go to Sebring and not be utterly miserable. We actually, our local region has a pretty strong time trial program. We run the short course there in August, and it is literally the worst thing you can possibly imagine. Like only because Sebring is so fun to run, will I go there in August. But it is not. You don't want to even deal with my laundry when I get back. So let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the national touring series. How are the regions picking this up? I know our own Central Florida region done a great job. We've got a very active program. We run Sebring, we run Daytona, which is absolutely amazing to be able to run time trials at Daytona. I mean, not only because it's 2 exits away from my house, but because it's Daytona, for God's sakes. How are there any other regions that have jumped on board here and are getting programs going?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of regions. So when you as you mentioned the breakdown, we got Time Trials Nationals. We leave the championship office, Time Trials Nationals, and we have the Time Trials National Tour, which goes around the country to a lot of the different tracks, and then from there you have divisionals and regionals. So the region races are that's the place to play multiple times within your area, right? Like you said, you run with your region quite a bit because it's fairly consistent. You've got multiple different tracks to run, and the beautiful thing is, once we brought Time Trials National Tour online, we had some regions that had pretty strong time trials programs, but the growth in the program that has happened over the last few years has been really outstanding. It just seems like year over year, you're almost doubling the events and the participation. So it's a growing segment. I'm super stoked on that. And as that happens, we're kind of shifting how we're building the Time Trials National Tour from we go to a track and we kind of pick a date and we go in and then we talk to the region where we want the regions to talk to us about the events that they have, and we come in and possibly make one of those a Time Trials National Tour because the regions are getting so busy with these and it's becoming so popular. We don't want to come in and start stepping on toes. We want to actually be a good partner and just help put on an awesome event for everybody to partake of.
Yeah, and I'm actually I'm paying attention. The reason I'm looking away is because I'm looking at the national tour schedule, and it is practically all corners of the country. Not a huge West Coast presence, but you got Buttonwillow out there. You've got stuff in the north with Gingerman, New Jersey, and then even into the South Central with Texas. So it is something that reaches all corners of the country. Do you want to give a shout out to any specific regions that have really gone and run with this, John? Because certainly I'd love to hear who else is. I mean, I'm spoiled here in Florida. We're doing a great job. Love to hear who else has got kick-ass programs out there.
Well, with just taking over the Time Trials program management, I'm still learning some of the stronger ones. But I've got to shout out to NCR, of course. They've done a great job. Folks in Kentucky,
Yeah, Kentucky region has done
they're killing it.
ever since we did time trial nationals here at NCM. They've done a regional time trial with us as well. So,
Oh wow,
so those guys have been trying as well to get people, and they 7,500 cars every year.
Yep. So there's a lot of regions that are seeing really good growth. And what's awesome it's we're seeing that happen in a lot of the areas. Vinny, cough, Indy, yes, Vinny, Indy. There is W. See, I don't have to say it. My good folks will there and support them or support me there. So, um, I I'm just happy to see all the regions grow. To be honest with you, and I know that that's an easy answer, so to speak. But really, my heart is in the growth of the sport. Period. Um, I want to see the regions grow. I want to see Time Trials National grow. I want to see Grid Life and GTA grow. I just love time trials in a nutshell. So anything we can do to elevate the sport and help grow it, I'm in for, and I'm down for, and it excites me.
yeah. Uh, Quick shout out here to our friend Court at Full Send Sims. Says he'd be happy to bring their Sims to Sebring and Daytona if you guys like. John, you would definitely like. Court's a great guy, and B, he's got a really cool setup of a portable air conditioned sim racing setup that he takes around to tracks, is doing sort of on site driver training and stuff. So if you want me to make that love connection there, Court, either email me and I'll get you with John, or John email me and I'll get you with Court. Let's get back to a couple of good questions here.
Well,
Oh, go ahead, John.
while we're talking about events, I just want to make sure we give a shout out to the right person here as well. We've got this really cool event coming up at this track called NCM in May that you've mentioned before. I want to make sure that everybody knows that registration for that event is going live in 2 weeks. It'll be March 2nd at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time is when the registration goes hot, and you can enter that event. Last year, there's terminology that says went like hotcakes, that kind of thing. It filled up pretty quick. So if that's an event you want to attend, that's one of those that you might not necessarily have to F5, but you want to be ready to go on that one. And that's not, as you said, that's not an event event or a track you want to miss. NCM is, out of all the tracks I've driven across the country, and I've gotten the chance to do that quite a bit now between doing this and some of the other things I've done. I would say is the quintessential time attack track, simply for what it puts in front of the driver when it comes to opportunities for power, opportunities for technicality and the handling cars, different ways to test drivers. It really offers you the goods. So it's a heck of a track and an awesome event.
What is the event cap for nationals?
Right now, I believe we have it about 250. There's potential to grow from there, but as we mentioned before, the big thing in my mind is I want to make sure we give people the amount of the time on track that they should get, and I want to try our best to keep the laps clean. And I know that can be a battle year over year, but it's something that is on the forefront of our thought process. Is how do we increase the potential to get those solid laps that everybody's looking for.
Okay, so let's get back to some of the questions here. And John has a great question regarding tires. SCCA Time Trial is sort of largely based around 200 treadwear tires. Now, I run in the unlimited category, which allows me to run DOT slicks. But in order to do that, I've got to have a lot more safety gear. I have to have at least a 4-point rollover protection. And then Matt mentioned he may or may not have ordered some Michelin slicks earlier. Well, if Matt's going to run real Michelin slicks, he's got to have at least 6 points of cage for that car. So I guess his dash is coming out soon. But talk a little bit about the tire philosophy and why don't we have more access to our compounds? I mean, I kind of know why, but if you say it, you'll get the emails. But I mean, no, there are very very valid reasons. But yeah, talk a bit about the tire philosophy for these events.
Well, the low hanging fruit is honestly accessibility. And part of that is making it easy for people to get to the event, get to the track, and get on track, right? So when you look at Sport Tuner and Max, all those cars are required to be street legal cars, and we want them to be on tires that are street legal as well, so they can literally be driven to the track and home if they want to. So there's some accessibility stuff there as well, and you've hinted at some safety stuff, and we get some pushback sometimes when we talk about safety in our comp and so forth, but when things go sideways with really, really sticky tires, they tend to go sideways at a much higher rate of speed. And there's only so much pavement or concrete before something else. And so when you add in the extra forces and the extra G's that the R comps can create, that's when we start saying, hey, it's time to start thinking about adding some safety gear to your car. Now, that doesn't say that we don't promote and tell people that it's a good idea to add safety at every level. In fact, even in sport, if you add, say, a 4-point roll cage to the back of your, say, E46 BMW, you can then remove the interior bits from that section of the car. So we try to, we know that you're gaining some weight by doing that. We try to offset some of that weight, giving you some provisions to reduce the gain there in an effort to encourage adding safety to the car, because either way, we want people to have the safety in their car. It's just the certain levels where we start to require it becomes the thing.
Yeah. And I think also if you look at your popular classes from autocross, where I think you're getting a lot of folks are moving from autocross and trying time trials. It's a very similar mindset. So that's where a huge portion of your audience is coming from. Your most popular classes in autocross are your 200 treadwear classes, street and street touring. So
and to double down on that, a lot of the other time trials programs are running on 200 treadwear tires.
Yeah.
As well. It's not just the SCCA. It's Grid Life and GTA have some classes that require a specific 200 treadwear tire. So it's kind of a thing across the board that 200 treadwear tires are becoming the de facto tires that people run on, and then that you have a few select classes once you get to a certain level where our comps make sense as long as you're doing the necessary things to keep it safe.
And this is both good and bad. But if you look at 200 treadwear, is kind of the only place where you've got tire choices as well. If you're running an R comp, yeah, I mean there's some other stuff out there, but it's really you're basically running Hoosiers. And if you're on a 200. Some cars work better on some other tires, and you have more choices there. And John really enjoyed your answer to those tire questions, John. So well done there. Let me back up here. Okay, so somebody asked about the Michelin Man air compressor at NCM. Matt, did that ever show up again?
So the Michelin Man did not survive. There was an internal moment of silence for Bib. The compressor itself did. We are working on getting the thing wired back up. That part of the pavilion and everything like that. That's all gone. So where we put it and how we power it is kind of the question right now.
So, okay, more awkward rules questions. Oh, and let's see. Sam says, kudos for the last comment mentioning other organizations that run TT programs and rooting for their growth. Yeah, I mean, I'll field this one. Well, what's the old saying? A rising tide lifts all ships. Yeah, if all these groups are doing good, that's a deeper pool for every single one of them to draw from. So that works great for everybody. Okay, let's get into the rule questions that everybody hates. Given the availability and common use of simple splitter diffusers from companies like Professional Awesome and Nine Lives, what's the hesitation with allowing them in max class? And I'll go a step further here because this has also affected me. There are a lot of companies out there now making, you're one click away from a lot of aerodynamic solutions, but there is not universal acceptance of a lot of that stuff out there because of little rules peculiarities. For example, I've got a wing for the back of the Corvette that you know technically hangs too far off the back of the car for a max class car. But I could order it with one click and a credit card off the internet, um, which is nobody's fault. But how do you how do you look at an emerging marketplace of easy to obtain stuff that 10 years ago you would have to didn't exist? I mean, the Aero stuff, off the shelf Aero pieces were just not a thing, 10, 12, 15 years ago. And now it's easy to find real good, real effective, high quality Aero stuff out there, but you've got to be careful about what you choose because it might be fine for this sanctioning body, but not fine for this sanctioning body. But there's a bunch of other guys that you run with at this sanctioning body. They're in the same class here, but all of a sudden you're not in that class because you ordered the wrong piece. How do you even approach that from a rules making standpoint, John?
Thank goodness I was not in charge of helping formulate rules when that came about. I was privy to some of the conversations though. But let me remind those folks, much to I'm sure my time trial board members and a few other people's chagrins, this is the year to talk about potential changes to rules. Um, but when it comes to the splitters and the air ramps that we all talk about, or the ducting, um, I know that one of the considerations was um, how do you open it up correctly? Um, how do you define it? Where an off the shelf, you purchase it somewhere thing is a great idea, and I want to lean into that thought process. Um, but how do you limit that where you don't have somebody dumping tens of however lots and lots of money into spending time in an air tunnel creating custom one-off pieces. That's stuff that sets them aside. Um, and I know this is a hot button topic. So, like I said, the bigger part is trying to make sure that it's accessible for everybody to an extent. Um, and as you like you mentioned, the aero stuff is becoming more prevalent as track day stuff becomes more popular. So that might be something we can revisit and we can look at again. But that would just have to be simple. Somebody requesting that. I see Matt Busby smiling already.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I think a possible solution would be that to admit that this Aero stuff is becoming almost like any other part, and the way that other parts are kind of for lack of a better word, homologated into street and tuner in a certain way. We may be able to kind of do the same thing with Aero, but like John said, this is a year when that stuff is being discussed. So if you've got an idea, if you've got feelings about this, absolutely, contact John, contact your rules making folks. Um, yeah, Andy Hollis says flat is easy to limit.
exactly. That
Yes.
was kind of the point, and a little better spoken than what I just said. But
Yeah.
yeah, flat's easy to limit. You can easily define it. Where once you start talking about ducting ramps, that kind of stuff, it's a lot harder to start um, putting limits on or setting up, and then it becomes another thing to check
Yeah.
or another thing you have to possibly look at and police. And we want to keep the vibe and the feel of the event very inclusionary and easygoing. The more that we can avoid the crawling around cars and looking for little things that, oh no, this guy's doing that, or the better off I think the program is.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to start wrapping stuff up here soon, but I want to get to everybody's questions here. So let's deal with Sultan's here. Why is it that we're allowed to modify catalytic converters in tuner, but not remove them?
Street legality.
Uh,
It's a pretty easy. It's
his
a pretty legal car.
his preemptive follow up was, considering both ways are technically illegal to drive on the street, he doesn't see the difference. So are you using a definition of modify that maybe you guys have a different definition of what you're thinking modify a catalytic converter means?
Yeah, it's. I know some cars come with two cats, that kind of thing, and it's when you add a header, sometimes you lose one of the cats, but you still have a cat in the car, and it still would pass a sniffer test, that kind of thing, from my understanding. So um, that's where that comes from. We still want the cars to have, when they're in tuner, still be street drivable, obviously, and that's part of that aspect, is making sure it's legal for everywhere. Um,
So modifying it by replacing it with an OEM equivalent uh, aftermarket cat is fine. Modifying it by punching out all of the core of it is not copacetic.
and sounds terrible. Let's be honest.
So, okay, fair enough. Yeah, and Andy, as he so often does, sums it up. You can pass emissions test with a high flow cat, but not with no cat. Good to know. All right, folks, if you have any last minute questions, get them in here in the next couple minutes. We will try and deal with them. Um, so, Sam Doherty wants to know, how is the SCCA adjusted to having to house Justin Barbery's perfectly chiseled chin now that he's an employee? Does the SCCA program fight with Track Night in America about ownership rights? Has it been a disruption to the program? Yeah, we should mention that you guys have added some folks to the team. Among them, the incredibly handsome and very very nice and genial Justin Barbary, and uh, I completely blanking on her name.
Nikki.
The yeah, well, the young lady with the
Oh,
mustache.
Ryan Cheek
Yeah, right, Ryan
Yep.
Cheek.
and Greg Ginsburg.
Yeah, and Ginsburg is now officially part of the part of the gang there. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the folks that are on the time trial team now.
Well, we'll start with Mr. Samuel's question here. When it comes to Justin, the beautiful thing about the experiential program and how we divvy up responsibility is I get to work hand in hand with Justin quite a bit. Um, I'm on the Track Night in America calls. He's on the Time Trials calls. He'll be at all the Time Trials events. So he's one of those guys that you love having him at an event. He's going to be very, very engaged in working with coaches this year because he's a phenomenal coach. Anybody that's had him at one of the events knows that. So I've kind of had him become like the coach's coach, so to speak, working with coaches that we're bringing in to kind of guide them along and elevate them and teach them his ways, so to speak. So he'll be at all the events. Nikki Edwards was brought on as well. She's doing a lot of our communications for us, making sure people stay in the loop on everything that's going on. She's been a tremendous asset. Once again, a great ad.
And Nikki is one step ahead of you. She's already posted the contact page for timetrials.scca.com in the chat here. So
I don't know whether to thank her or not. I'm kidding, of course. Then, as you mentioned, Ryan Cheek has just joined us as an admin assistant for the Time Trials program, which is tremendous. She's been a tremendous help already when it comes to taking care of there's a lot of work going on, and with JK stepping into the road race department and working closer and harder on enduro stuff, I've kind of had to step into the role that I already was doing, and then also his role. So my role got expanded, and bringing her in kind of helps take that 2-person job that became 1-person job and separate it down again a little bit. Um, so she's getting up to speed, and once again, she's super passionate about the program. So she's obviously a great person to bring in. And then Greg Ginsburg, once again, when you talk about one of those things that fell into your laps or fell into your lap, we got the opportunity to bring him on board to all the Time Trials National Tour events to not only be a PA guy at the event, but actually push out the commentary via the web, so people at home can listen to what's going on, which I think is just one more thing of elevating the program and elevating the events, and making them feel like a pretty cool deal. The one event we won't have him at is the one you mentioned earlier with the Pine Mountain Hill Climb. He'll be there, of course, but we're going to be working on something to fill. You can't fill his shoes, but you're going to hope to find somebody who can step in at least and take care of it. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Pine Mountain Hill Climb entry registration opens 2 days after TTN on March 4th. So for those folks interested in flying up a mountain as quickly as possible, that's your deal. That's your one.
So we will see Greg at Sebring, though, it sounds like.
Yes, we'll have every event except for Eagles Canyon when he'll be at Pine Mountain doing the deed there. So I'm, as I mentioned in the press release, when we're bringing on them, any chance you have an opportunity to bring on people this passionate about SCCA and time trials itself, you have to. It just makes the program that much stronger. So super stoked to have all 4 of those involved and the opportunity to work with them every day.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are going to let you guys get out of here real soon. Is there anything, John, I know we talked about this beforehand, and I've forgotten every email we've passed back and forth. Is there anything we are remiss in not getting to tonight that you wanted to make sure we covered in letting folks know what's going on in 2022?
No, I think we got the big stuff. The big thing, the rules stuff. Obviously, we wanted to talk a little bit about. But for me, the big thing that I wanted to bring up on this call is both Sebring and registration open for Time Trials Nationals.
Yeah.
Those 2 events are going to be pretty rad, in my opinion. With Sebring, the thing we didn't talk about is I've been to Sebring a couple times. I've been lucky to go there for a couple different reasons. And every Formula One fan has their certain drivers. And Juan Fangio has always been one of my drivers I look forward to. And knowing that he's raced there and knowing that they have the 24-hour there and all that stuff, I can't imagine getting the opportunity to drive the track at speed like those folks did back in the day. I think that's just killer. So you've got a legendary racetrack in Sebring that we get to do this year, and then you've got, like I said, what I consider the quintessential time trials track in the country that we get to run in May. So between those 2 events, you can't miss.
Yeah, I'm so stoked for Sebring because it's, you know, I grew up in Florida. I started racing in Florida. This is the only place I've ever lived and done this stuff. And between that and Daytona, they're 2 places that, like, you never take them for granted. Like every time I go into Sebring, you know, I've had Terry Irwood, whose dad essentially established the track. I've had him coach me around the track, and it was like, dude, that was crazy. Like it was crazy to sit there and get instruction from this guy, and then realize, like, oh my God, this wouldn't exist unless your family made this happen. And I don't remember anything that happened after about turn 3. So stay the hell out of my way is all I'm saying. But yeah, so I will say again, I will beat this on my social media until it actually happens, that if you're anywhere within the striking distance that event, go do that Sebring event and absolutely hit Matt's place up. Matt, anything else you want to add to this? I've been watching the porno movies you've been watching in reflection of your glasses. Yeah, the whole time. So,
just help control the racetrack sound issues. Have your cars muffled or resonate.
Yeah. That's certainly a big deal for you guys, because you are, trying to be good neighbors, and that's going to be look, folks. They're not making any more land. There is, and they're going to keep putting houses on every single patch of grass, and whether that patch of grass is next to a racetrack or not does not matter. But what really matters is how those racetracks respond to the inevitability of there being residential encroachment um, everywhere in the world. I mean, just even talking about Sebring, um, when I first started going to Sebring, literally you would get off I-4 and head south on 27, and you were in orange groves from the time you left I-4 to the time you got to Sebring. Now it's stuff. It's stuff the whole way. Daytona is right across the street from the mall. You know, it's right next to the Chinese buffet we used to go to all the time. There are it's people say, well, why did you build a house next to the airport, next to that racetrack? Because it's going to happen sooner or later. They will build a house next to everything because that's what house builders do. So yes, be respectful. To be good neighbors, and good neighbors get to stick around. Lyle wants to know, when is the next fast track coming out? That is the place where all of the rules updates get publicly revealed and discussed. And so when's that happen?
The fast tracks typically come out at the beginning of the month. We know we have quite a few cars that have been waited to be classed. Those will all be in that new fast track. So you should have some really good information if you're waiting on a car classing. You should have that pretty soon. So I will look for that basically like the first week of March, potentially second week of March. But as I'm sure many people knew, we've gone through a little bit of a time trials board changeover. So we wanted to make sure we got the time trials board situated, and then we could push forward with getting some of the cars finished off classing, because the car classing committee can suggest the classing, but the time trials board obviously has the final say on yep, that all looks good. So we want to make sure all those people are in place, ready to go, locked and loaded before we push forward all those cars.
And I can say with great authority that all of these suggestions for classing and all the requests for classing are taken seriously, and they are being considered by people who are giving putting a lot of work into it, putting a lot of work and number crunching and philosophical discussion into it. It's being taken very seriously. So.
And we have some really, really strong individuals on that classing committee from all different walks of motorsport or automotive life.
A couple of idiots too, but yeah.
Well, I mean, if you count me as two, that's true.
Okay, and Doug is chilling for the Eagles Canyon event, April 22nd, 23rd. Yeah, going to Texas. So
yes,
that is exciting.
Another really, really fun track, recently repaved a few years back. Once again, it's a Midwest track, and it's what it really is the final shakedown before Time Trials Nationals. It's a great track that compares very well with NCM in the terms of a gear up, so to speak. And it just happens to be in Texas, which everything's bigger in Texas, so it's got to be better too, right? So, yes.
Absolutely. All right.
Definitely look forward.
Folks, thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks to John and Matt. John, I will see you in Sebring, my friend. Matt, I will see you hopefully sooner rather than later. I don't know if you know this, but unfortunately, I will not be at Time Trial Nationals this year because our Ultimate Track Car Challenge is taking place the same weekend because of post-COVID. We're not really even post-COVID yet, but sort of post COVID lockdown scheduling flooding into certain weekends. It just happened to end up that we ended up competing with each other on that.
I'm sure Kerrigan will move it
on that weekend. So.
JG, we should work on something to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, we should talk about that. Or I will just come by like Tuesday and Wednesday of the following week and run a few laps, and you can just throw my times and just have everybody else in unlimited one, hold their times. So awesome, guys! Thank you very much for being here. I will let both of you off the hook now. Thanks to Matt Busby. Thanks to John Hunter. Thanks for hanging out tonight, talking to everybody. So, gentlemen, good seeing you, and I will see you again soon. So, bye bye. And just like magic, they were gone. Greg, yes, thank you. Greg says Larry and I need you. Yeah, I am flattered. We will see each other in Sebring, but yes, I am. While I am very excited to attend the Ultimate Track Car Challenge, the Tyrag Ultimate Track Car Challenge presented by Grassroots Motorsports. I'm gonna miss all my friends at NCM as well. I hope we answered a few questions tonight. Again, if you missed anything, I'm going to throw this link up right now. timetrials.scca.com/pages/contact. If you've got any rules questions, send them to John. He will do his best to get right back to you with maybe with an answer, maybe with a non-answer. But know that whatever he's not answering, he is working on getting an answer to, and that is. Yeah, boy, it's the amount of work that goes into this program is impressive, and it's exciting to be a part of it as a competitor. And I will look forward to seeing some of you guys at Sebring. Yes, we'll see Danny at Sebring, and that's gonna be super exciting. And folks, if you enjoy all the stuff we are doing here at Grassroots Motorsports Magazine, grassrootsmotorsports.com on the web. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, go ahead and subscribe because we are dropping videos twice a week now, I think. We are doing a lot of I really appreciate everybody saying they miss the old live show. We kind of do too, but also it was a huge pain in the ass to produce and to pay for. So we have shifted a bit to more produced videos, and we are dropping those a couple times a week on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and you get what all the kids say. You get first notice of when our stuff goes up. And yeah, the usual social media stuff. Best way to support us online is to tell your friends and to hit all the little buttons that tell the algorithms that you love us. We are slaves to the algorithm, just like a girl doing makeup tutorials or a guy making a pie, or a guy getting hit in the nuts with a golf ball. We are just we are slaves to those algorithms. So do whatever you can to help it out. That's it for us, folks. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you out at the track. I hope to see some of you at Sebring. And thanks once again to John Hunter from the Sports Car Club of America, Matt Busby from NCM Motorsports Park in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I am JG Pasterjack. I will see you all again sooner rather than later. Have a great night, everyone. Good night.